Hello everyone, and welcome to Connor's Culture Corner, the corner where culture comes to stay. Today I'm going to be discussing the culturally bounded problem of interest isolation. What happens to a person's interests when they can't adopt or share them with others? Today I'm joined by an extra special guest speaker, my lovely boyfriend, Hunter Golder. Hi, Hunter.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Connor. I am very excited to talk about culture today, and I think this is a particularly pressing topic, especially in unprecedented times like these. All right, well, I think it's probably pretty important, being a podcast about culture, to know what culture is exactly here at Connor's Culture Corner. So, how do you define culture, Connor?
I would define it as the way that we adopt our interests and love for life from the people around us. Whether it's, you know, loving painting because your grandma taught you, or going fishing with your dad. I think it's how we gather our love of life from the people who also share that love.
That is a very nice definition. That's very sweet. How did you actually develop this definition of culture? Like, how did you come up with that?
It was when we were assigned this, it was actually pretty daunting because I don't know, as a boring little white kid from the suburb, I don't really associate myself with the term culture a lot, but I realized that while I might not have stuff from my history that I attach myself to or anything, there's still parts of everyday life that like make everyone who they are, and I think sharing your interest with other people is a big part of that.
I definitely agree. I think that my dad would be a lot happier if I inherited his car guy culture. I cannot tell you a Hyundai from a Honda. But I think that if I inherited that culture a little bit more, then maybe he would really appreciate that. So I definitely agree with your definition of culture. All right, so I guess technically you could say that I've been isolated from the interests of automobiles from my father. So what exactly do you define as interest isolation? I know you've done some research on that. I was just wondering, how exactly do you define that?
Um, I would define interest isolation as really more of a question. Um, Kind of what happens whenever you can't share your love for life and your love for your interests and hobbies. What happens when you can't bond with the people around you?
Right, well, that is definitely a very interesting question. And do you have any answers to that question? Do you have any research potentially that you could share with us?
So when I was looking into this, I actually found a bit of information on the topic from Alfred Adler's book, Social Interest.
Okay.
And it's basically, he talks about the concept that humans evolutionarily are a social species,
Right.
and we need to build community and share our love for everything in order to thrive and in order to improve.
Right.
So it rebounded the question for me of, if we evolutionarily are a social species,
Mm-hmm.
what happens when we're socially isolated? What
Yeah.
happens when we can't share our love? It brought back the question in twofold.
Right. It's definitely vital, not only at a family level, but at a friend level, at a romantic partner level, at any level, to be able to, share what you love, because that is, like you said, that's what makes us us, and that's what allows us to, connect with other people. So, do you have any, further research that you conducted on this at all, or?
Well, I did do a bit of research on this. I actually did find this interesting. What happens when people are, what happens to people's desires
Mm-hmm.
and for their goals in life when somebody's isolated. And I actually found through some of this research that there's actually a good bit of negative effects from
Right.
social circumstances to your goals and your aspirations,
Mm-hmm.
because comparison really is the thief of joy.
That's for
And what happens when you compare yourself is you it rebounds in your head over and over,
Mm-hmm.
and it ends up changing your goals and your aspirations, and especially your self-image
Yeah.
when you see other people's accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
So while I think it's really damaging to isolate yourself as far as your interests go, I actually think we should distance ourselves slightly when looking at long-term goals and self-image.
Right.
I think
Find our own selves. Like
Exactly.
find what we want for our own selves and stop comparing ourselves and our desires to other
Exactly.
people's success to define our own definition of success.
exactly.
All right. Well, it definitely is an issue then to isolate ourselves from other people's interests. Maybe not so much isolating ourselves from other people's versions of success, but it definitely is still an issue to not engage in other people's interests, not being able to adopt other people's interests, and not being able to bond over them. So what exactly do you think is the solution to this problem of interest isolation?
Well, when I was doing my research, I didn't find a lot of answers. I didn't find any solutions. It's not something that you can prevent. There will always be people that, somewhere or another are isolated, whether it's through their own circumstances or it's through their own choice. There will always be
Right.
people who isolate themselves.
Uh-huh.
And
there will always be people as well who aren't willing to share their interests with other people, aren't willing to pass those on. Gatekeeping is a big issue of people trying to hoard their interests for themselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think is the solution to this?
I think a really big one is really just, I think it comes down to no man left behind. I think it's you need to make sure that, if you see somebody who maybe is isolating themselves,
Uh-huh.
or I don't know, it's just be more outwardly sharing with your interests.
Right.
Don't gatekeep.
Yeah.
Don't exclude people from these necessary parts of life.
Yeah, interests are, I think, the fundamental part of connection. I think that when you and I met and first started getting close, we really bonded over the interest of video games.
Yeah.
We gamed together. And obviously it turned out well for us. So I think that it's fundamental to share these interests with other people as well. I think that is to push yourself outside of your comfort zone and really try to include other people in your interests, because you'll find that is really the most rewarding social experience that you can have. All right. Well, I think this was so informative for me. So thank you so much for having me on, Connor.
Of course. Thank you for coming on.
Of course. And I think that I learned today how culture is not a hegemonic idea. It is not a monolithic idea. It's certainly not a static idea. It's something that's constantly evolving and changing and being passed from person to person. It's like a disease, but like a good disease. Yeah. So thank you so much for helping me learn about interest isolation and how dangerous it is to isolate ourselves from other people's interests.
Thank you for allowing me to speak to somebody else.
Of
for
course.
once.
If you are interested in learning more about the social nature of human beings, check out Alfred Adler's seminal book, Social Interest, A Challenge to Mankind. For more statistical research, check out the work of Mingyu Gong.
And for more on culture overall, come on back to Connor's Culture Corner.
The corner where culture comes to stay. Until next time.